Hey everybody, it's Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. Thank you for watching this live broadcast from the Marching Roundtable. We're talking about the Directors Academy at the Music for All Summer Symposium, and special guest today, man of the hour, Grand Poobah of all things the Director Academy attendance. I don't know where I'm going with this. Jarrell Horton, how are you, Jarrell?
I'm doing great, Tim. How are you today?
I'm doing great. So we are going to be talking about your experience at the Directors Academy, and you're going to be giving us some tips about things that you learned there that you used with your own group. But first, tell everybody where you are in the world, where you teach, that kind of thing.
Well, I am in Birmingham, Alabama. I teach at Vestavia Hills High School, and this is year 18 for me here. And I'm just super excited to share my experience with everybody today. I'm a tuba player by trade, and I love all things band and music and just people in general.
Very good. Tuba player. That's very cool. Does that give you any special superpowers as a band director that you have the tuba mindset?
Only great wit.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm not even going to follow down that tuba rabbit hole there, but this is very cool. And I have to tell everybody, Jarrell, you have a lot going on today. Like, thank you for stopping your day. Tell everybody what you're doing there at your work today.
Well, I keep looking at the door like, is someone going to bother me? We're actually hosting our music performance assessment, or essentially our state festival, here at our school today. So I was like, I got a lunch break. We can make this happen.
Well, you're really nice to stop everything. And everybody, I told him we might need to talk fast so we can make sure that he gets his lunch. But anyway, Jarrell, tell us about the Music for All Summer Symposium. Everybody, it's back this year. They're having the Summer Symposium. We're so excited about that. The dates this year are June 27th through July 2nd. Jarrell, tell us about when have you done it? How many times have you been there? That kind of thing.
I think I went to my first summer symposium in the summer of 2007. And then I've been back every year since. I went 1 year as a director, and then I volunteered for several years. And now I've been working on the staff for, I think, the past 3 or 4 years. So it's a really great thing, and I'm super excited to talk about it today.
That's cool. And if you're watching, everybody, thanks. We would love to have your questions. If you have anything you want to ask Jarrell or myself, type it in. And also let us know where you're watching from. Put that in the comments section. So, Jarrell, there's obviously something that you got there that kept you wanting to return. So let's talk about that. After that first year, and you left that experience at the Directors Academy, like, what was it about it that made it like a wow for you?
Years ago, it used to be at Illinois State University, and I walked in the Bone Center, and I was terrified, just thinking about coming from Alabama, and really it was only my 4th year to teach, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I walked into that room, and I was greeted by a really great friend of mine now. Her name is Cecilia Clark. And I just felt so welcome there, and I finally felt like I found my people. And that was one of the reasons why I kept coming back, just because I felt so welcome, and the wealth of knowledge that I found in that spot. I felt like there was nothing else like it in all the other professional developments that I had done up until that point. I just had not found anything that was quite like the experience, just being able to be around such great professionals. The atmosphere was casual yet still professional, and just chock full of information. And of course, having all the kids there, having a simultaneous experience. The first year there, I went as a director, and I took kids of mine, and just their experience coupled with my experience. I thought to myself, as long as I'm able, I'm going to go and do this, because it was that beneficial to me.
That's very cool. And the thing I love about this, Jarrell, is every time I have one of these conversations with a student who's been there on the student track, or a color guard person, or whoever I talk to, they always start with that same thing. They're not like, oh, I learned this trick to teach my trumpets. They always say, man, I met these great people, and I made these relationships, and I felt welcome. Like, that is special. I think that's what sort of one of the cool things about camp in general. Anytime you can go away for a week and sort of spend time away, turn off your life for a while. But I love that everybody starts with that. Like, it's about the people and the relationships, and about their own personal growth as a person, not even necessarily as a teacher or as a musician.
I think up until the point in time that I actually went to the camp, I had these thoughts about what I thought it would be like, and I made assumptions about myself professionally, like I'll never be able to do this, I'll never be able to do that. And like I said, I walked into that room and I met my good friend Cecilia, and I still tell her to this day, because we talk a bunch. We're like best friends now, and I tell her to this day, meeting her at that camp and going through that experience, it really changed my life. It really changed the trajectory of my career, just helping me think about things in a different way. And taking that experience has, like I said, it really changed my life, but it also encouraged me that when something great is given to me, I should find a way to give it to somebody else, which is why I've been back every year, because that experience that I had, I try to give back to other people when they walk into the camp. So anybody that's watching, if they've ever been to the director's track, they know that me and my team, we're going to meet them at the door, and we're going to do our best to try to make them feel welcome. I'm going to talk them into playing in the director's concert band, because that was the thing. And because I was nervous about that too, but it really turned out being a super great thing. So another layer is that I found my people, and I also felt like the great things that were given to me, I just want to make sure I give to other people that come to the camp as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. Everybody, we're talking about the Directors Academy at the Music for All Summer Symposium. The symposium is back this year, June 27th through July 2nd. You can find out more at camp.musicforall.org. Jarrell, this is very cool that you're saying these things, because it lines up. I've had a lot of other conversations about this. I talked to Richard Salcedo, who directs the Directors Concert Band, and he talks about, again, his first lead off was talking about the people. And, you're rubbing elbows with people that are really kind of famous in our world of band. And you realize, like, they're just awesome, nice people, that's sort of, I love anytime like right now I'm talking to you, and the world can be kind of hard right now. And you can kind of think like, man, people are awful. And then I have a conversation like this, and you're like, that's really not true. Like people, and especially, of course, I think in our world of band and music, people are pretty great. And even at the very highest level, you can meet Greg Bim and, the director of these top groups, Darren Davis and Matt Harloff, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, they're all just great.
And it's so funny you say that, because all those people that you just mentioned, I've actually had conversations with at camp, and it was great. And I remember back to the very first years that I started going, and Alfred Watkins was there, and he would just sit down and talk with us. Like, we would all sit down for lunch, or after director's band, we would just sit and chat. And Mr. Salcedo does the same thing. All of those guys are so willing to give up that information. And I think I mentioned before, I had these preconceived notions about what I thought camp was going to be like, until I actually got there, and I could see that things would be, way different than what I perceived them to be, because all of these people, they came there for their love of people. They came there for their love of music, and just being willing to share with people who were just hungry to grow and learn. So in a sense, camp becomes this like community, because let's face it, the music world really is a small world. We spend a lot of time separated from each other, but we come back together at times like Midwest and the Summer Symposium, and we realize that this world is really small. And that's been another really encouraging thing about this camp in general. And being that I just mentioned Midwest, I love Midwest, is great. Everybody's dressed up. It's a little bit more formal. But the thing I love about the Summer Symposium is that you still get to see all of these really wonderful professionals, great educators, but they're wearing polos and shorts. And, we're sitting around eating hot dogs or sandwiches, and just, kind of talking about band and talking about how we can help kids. It becomes really organic. And I think that's another a really cool draw about the Summer Symposium.
Yeah, and anytime you can get together with a bunch of people that are just as geeked out, nerdy about music and band as you are, like, that's
I found my tribe. I found my tribe.
Exactly. I feel that way when I go to a drum corps show or a Winter Guard show or any sort of thing like this, where the band people are all getting together, and you're like, it's okay for me to be just that passionate about the whole first suite. It's okay, everybody. You know what I mean?
Very true.
It feels good for your soul. The other thing I love that you said that I've heard multiple times in these conversations is about how you were inspired for your own self and your own career. I had a conversation with Susie Harloff and two color guard people, one an instructor, one a student, and that podcast will be out, I guess, the very beginning of April at the Marching Roundtable. But I'm sort of going to mention here that both of them talked about how they were encouraged at like what was possible for them, like the instructor color guard person that was on that conversation was talking about, like, everybody encouraged me to not only do certain things with my guard, what might be possible, but also, like, he ended up performing in a world-class indoor color guard, and he never would have done that if he hadn't gone to that camp. And everybody was like, well, of course you can do that, of course, like, and the same thing with the students. She was like, she grew so much as a person and became so much more outgoing just from that 1 week of interacting with those other people. And she takes that back to her own guard at her own high school. And like, suddenly she's like this rock star, all from that 1 week.
Well, there's this concept that I talk to my kids about. Someone shared with me years ago that it's hard to ask someone to paint a picture of a mountain when they've never seen one. People might draw it pointy, or they might draw it without trees, or but if you've ever actually been to a mountain, you realize that there are some things about it that you can only experience. And I think that's what the summer symposium did for me. I mentioned before, I had these preconceived notions about the camp, but also about myself as an educator and what I really felt like my potential would be. And then I go to this camp and I meet all of these people, and they give me all this really great information, which just broadened my mind. In essence, allowed me to really see the mountain that I thought was one way, but it actually turned out being another. And I think that young lady probably had the same experience that I did, that, there are things that you assume sometimes that you can't do, and then there are people that are willing to say, no, if you would just do these few things, you can get yourself in line to make it happen.
Right. And we all hear all those stories about how somebody said something to someone and they never, and it shut them down. Like, we hear those stories all the time. I wanted to be a great singer, and then somebody made some comment and they just give it up. It's amazing how quickly people can just drop their dreams from one offhanded comment. But the thing I love about what we're talking about here at the Summer Symposium in the Directors Academy, which you are a member of, is like, it's sort of like the opposite happens. Like, I think people like build you up, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I see more in you than you even know is in there.
That's exactly right. Sorry, there's some people warming up, but anyway, I think you're exactly right. And having the opportunity to be around so many people that have had so many experiences, I think encourages and inspires those of us that are seeking after those things to just know that it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, everybody, we are talking here about the Music for All Summer Symposium here with Jarrell Horton, who is at Vestivia Hills. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, in Alabama, great program there. Jarrell, you do great work with your students. We're talking about what he got out of it. So, and by the way, everybody, he's hosting a concert festival at his school today, which is insane. So if you hear noises in the background, that is just young musicians getting ready for their big performance. So we cannot begrudge that in any way. And actually, we can hardly hear it anyway, Jarrell, so don't worry about it. So do you have like a takeaway? Like, do you remember during one of those first years something that you took back to your students and tried, like an idea or a concept or something that that made a big difference for your group? Do you remember any of those?
Okay, so anybody who's watching this that knows me knows that I'm a super geek and I write everything down. Now I type it in my phone. I type it in the notes in my phone. But back then, I used to carry around these little black notebooks, and I wrote down everything, every conversation I would have. If I sat down with Greg Bim or I sat down with Alfred Watkins, I would take my little notebook and I would just say, hey, I'm just going to write this stuff down. So I really wish I could pinpoint one thing, but I learned so much, Tim. I have like volumes of these little notebooks that I've taken so many things away, whether it be something about concert band or marching band. I remember having a really great conversation with the jazz guys about jazz, and meeting Ndugu Chancellor, who played, drum set for Michael Jackson, used to come to camp. He's passed away now, but there's so many things. But I just wrote everything down, every encounter I had. Even if I didn't have my notebook at the time, I would go back to my room at night and I'll just write down all those things, because now there's so many things that I do, and I go back and look through those notebooks and I go, oh my gosh, I learned that at the Summer Symposium. So I know that was kind of a random way to answer the question, but I wrote everything down, everything.
No, that's a fantastic answer. And I got to tell everybody, there's your pro tip. Like, write it down. Like, Jarrell, come on, how many times we had a great idea? Come on. There are stories of great melodies of symphonies have been written on cocktail napkins at restaurants, right? So it's okay to do this, everybody. Maybe not on a restaurant, but napkin. But I love the idea of writing it down. And you're right. We have this tool now in our hand where we can like make a note and remember it. And then you're going to have it That's great advice.
Now it's a lot of voice memos. So now when I go to those sessions, I just take my phone out and just hit record, and then I can take time later to process it. Because in that moment, you want to be in the moment. So lots of wonderful tools to keep up with that great information.
Okay, well, I'm not going to keep you too much longer because, as I said, Jarrell is hosting Concert Festival at his school, which is a monumental task. And I want to make sure that you go and get lunch, Jarrell. But this has been such an interesting conversation. Clearly, this has had a big impact on you and your life and your career. And I think what I love, again, is it seems to be in ways that aren't just knowledge for teaching a specific subject, but more like you as a person growing, and especially growing in what you thought was possible for you. Like that, to me, is the best part of all the conversations I'm having. What do you want to say as we're closing?
I just want to say, coming from where I am, I'm in Alabama, and sometimes I felt a little bit isolated with, other people in the country. And I think people get insulated, in your areas. And I went to the summer symposium, and like I said, I found my tribe. I met people there, even that first year, the second year, that here we are, a decade or more later, I still talk to them on a regular basis. They talk to me and we help each other out. I have a friend of mine who we send recordings to each other and stuff like that. So this camp was a way to connect to other people who were like-minded, a way to delete some of that space that I felt like was between me and some other educators in the country. And that's been another thing that I really take away from this. And I hope the people who are watching this podcast right now and thinking to themselves, should I do this? Should I not do it? Just take the plunge. I have to tell you a really quick story. So that very first year, I had the poster up in my office, and the drum major at the time, I told him, if ever we get a chance, we're going to go to this camp. And he said, well, I'll go home and ask my parents. So he went home and then he asked his parents, and they were like, yeah. So he came back and he was like, Mr. Horton, they said I can go. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we rented a car, and me and him and two other students of mine, we got in the car and we drove there. It's the best decision ever. So really, I have to give it up to those students that were willing to help me get out of my comfort zone, because I was terrified. And by them saying, yeah, I kind of had to bite the bullet and go, okay, they want to go, I should go too. So
isn't that how life is too? Like, some
great thing.
Yeah. Sometimes you just sort of get put in a position where you're like, well, I guess I have to do this thing. And it turns out to be a life-changing experience. Yeah, it's fantastic. So everybody, we're talking about the Summer Symposium, the Directors Academy that Jarrell had such a great experience at and is still a part of. It's happening this year, June 27th through July 2nd. You can find out more at camp.musicforall.org. Jarrell, I can't believe I got to this point in the end of our conversation. I'm just now mentioning how great the facial hair is on today's conversation. So I hope everybody's enjoyed the great facial hair. And I got to tell you, I also really love that color green on you, man.
Thank you. I'm sporting the salt and pepper today. So, yeah, I'm trying to be like you.
I got a lot more salt than pepper at this point, but I got this one little dark patch. Here it is. Right here. It's one little dark patch hanging on, man. It's like it will not go away. And I'm like, you hang in there, Mr. Dark Patch. I don't care.
I hope mine hangs in there for a little while longer.
This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences and for stopping in the middle of such a busy day.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me. And for anybody that's thinking about it, please reach out. If you need to just chat about it, ask me some specific questions. I'd love to share, because like I said, meeting Cecilia and doing this really changed my life, and I hope that I can help share that to somebody else.
That's fantastic. Thanks for having the conversation. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me.